The Prisoner of Azkaban is an unconventional story due to how passive the characters are, yet it still manages to use skillful writing techniques to make up for that. In 3-act structure, the first act is the introduction. The inciting incident takes the story from Act 1 to Act 2, and it is the start of the protagonist's journey. But like many Harry Potter movies, there isn't really a journey here. The kids just go to school as an antagonist builds up in the background. I believe Act 2 of the movie is when the characters arrive at Hogwarts. I could argue that the Dementor attack is the inciting incident, but it didn't incite anything in the plot. Remove that one scene, and Act 2 barely changes. So, in place of having a typical journey, the story takes a jigsaw puzzle approach to storytelling. It places little puzzle pieces in each scene at the corner of the board. As the story continues, each corner begins to expand with more pieces connecting until eventually the whole puzzle starts making a clear picture. Let's start by looking at the plot lines individually. The first plot is about Sirius Black. Despite him and Harry being very passive and barely interacting, his plotline is interesting because of how the puzzle builds, even without the audience knowing. Back in Act 1, a black dog is seen staring at Harry. That's the first piece. At the time, we didn't know this was Black. Then on the bus, there's a newspaper with Sirius on the cover, and we learn of his prison break. Then Ron's father warns Harry to stay away from him, but we don't know why. These two pieces establish Sirius as a threat. In Act 2, Snape teaches the kids about animagi, people who can turn into animals. The puzzle piece connects to the black dog in Act 1, but it's not obvious yet. Black breaks into the castle, and Harry learns of Black's history with his parents. This explains why Sirius is after him for the moment. Harry heard that Sirius killed Pettigrew, but later gets an implied confirmation that Pettigrew is alive through the map, introducing an inconsistency. Eventually, all the pieces come together to create the full story. Pettigrew was alive because Black didn't kill him or betray the Potters. Pettigrew was the real villain, and Sirius was framed, which is why he was in jail. Sirius is also an animagus, explaining the black dog in Act 1 and the claw marks on the painting when he entered the castle. All of this also recontextualizes his hunt for Harry as an attempt to reunite with his godson. The full story was split into puzzle pieces that were seemingly disconnected along with a misconception in the lore, allowing for a plot twist. The next plotline is Peter Pettigrew. Snape teaches a class about animagi. This is piece 1. Ron's familiar is a rat, and at one point, he accuses Hermione's cat of eating it. This is piece 2. Harry learning of Peter's death is piece 3. When Harry uses the Marauders map, he sees Pettigrew, who's supposed to be dead, walk past him on the map, but he can't see him. This is piece 4. When the full story is revealed, it connects all the pieces. Peter was an animagus that could turn into a rat and was posing as Ron's familiar. He disappeared because he was sneaking around, not because he got eaten by a cat. And Harry couldn't see him at night because he was crawling on the floor. The reason he's alive is because he faked his death and framed Sirius for his crimes. It all comes together and even connects to the Sirius plot. The next plotline is the Dementors and Patronus. We first see them attack Harry on the train, then Lupin explains their purpose. Lupin used a specific spell to ward it off. In Lupin's first class, Harry's fear of Dementors is established. In the Quidditch game, they attack him again, which becomes a catalyst for Harry learning the Patronus charm to fight them. The spell allows him to fight off Dementors and even save himself from them after time traveling in the climax. This isn't as complex of a puzzle as Sirius's plot, but the Dementors are set up so that Harry can have his climactic heroic moment against them when casting Patronus. The next plotline is Buckbeak's execution. In Hagrid's class, Draco messes with the beast and gets himself injured. His father orders Buckbeak to be executed due to his perceived danger. The beast is seemingly executed, but is later saved by time travel. The next plotline is Lupin the werewolf. When teaching about the Boggart, Lupin's fear is implied to be the full moon. Later, Snape teaches about werewolves who transform in the full moon. Snape had to replace Lupin because he was missing classes. When Harry was sneaking around, Snape made a remark to Lupin about the moonlight. The full story is that Lupin is a werewolf, which is why he fears the moon. The final important plot line is time travel. Several times, Hermione is shown appearing out of nowhere to Ron's surprise. She's even taking 2 classes that happen at the same time, which is either a joke or an inconsistency. There's rocks thrown at the trio at Hagrid's place, and it's not explained. When fighting Lupin, there's an unexplained howling that saves them. Finally, when fighting the Dementors, there's an unexplained wizard that saves Harry. He thought it was his dad, but the time turner explained all of the inconsistencies. Hermione was using time travel to take multiple classes. She threw the rock at Harry. Hermione howled, and Harry casted the charm to save himself. It all made sense by the end. The third act wonderfully fuses all of these seemingly disconnected plot lines into one satisfying explosion, making everything worthwhile. In Act 3, they save Sirius, fight Peter, fight Dementors, save Buckbeak, fight Werewolf Lupin, and use the time turner. The story started off episodic and disjointed, but by the end, everything was synthesized and cohesive. The jigsaw puzzle was completed. This Jigsaw plot is supported by the way the story is structured, especially Act 2A. The movie takes advantage of its school setting and has back-to-back scenes of different Hogwarts classes and events. On the surface, this is episodic and disconnected, but in hindsight, each scene is slowly placing pieces on the board. Act 1 already established Sirius, the Dementors, and Patronus. In Act 2, the first class is Divination, which shows that Harry is in danger. Hagrid's class sets up Buckbeak and plants seeds for his execution plot. Lupin's class establishes Harry's fear of Dementors. Snape's class sets up werewolves and animagi. The Quidditch match is the catalyst for Lupin teaching Harry Patronus. The cloak scene establishes the Marauders map and more Sirius lore. Most of Act 2 is like this, consecutive scenes that connect puzzle pieces together, allowing for the intertwining plot lines to fuse seamlessly. In general, having a passive protagonist is a writing flaw, but the masterful execution of this Jigsaw plot takes advantage of Harry's passivity and creates a unique but equally entertaining story with several setups and payoffs. The movie is also packed with mysteries. The types of mysteries used are interesting. The most basic mystery is one where there's a mystery in-universe that the hero and the audience are trying to solve. The hero receives observable clues to eventually solve the mystery. Azkaban doesn't really do that. One type it uses is what I'll call an audience mystery. This is a mystery that is only for the audience. The characters may not know the answer, but they aren't actively trying to solve it. Examples would be Lupin being a werewolf and Hermione's time travel. None of the characters try to solve the mystery, and the answer is eventually handed to us, or the character solves it off screen. There are clues for the viewers to piece together though. The second type is a partial clueless mystery. Here, the characters are aware of the mystery and may even have some clues, but the story hands them the answer rather than giving them enough clues to crack it themselves. Examples would be why Sirius is after Harry and why Peter was on the map. Sirius and Lupin answer both of these questions because they already knew or solved it off screen. However, the audience may have had enough clues to solve it because the story provided audience clues, which are clues that characters might not be able to use because only the audience sees them. For example, the clues for Pettigrew are Snape's animagus lesson, him being on the map, Harry not being able to see him, and Scabbers disappearing around the same time. Lupin solved the mystery, but all he used was Pettigrew being on the map and his knowledge of animagi. He didn't use the other details that only we saw. He also used the missing finger, which the movie didn't note about Scabbers. Another example is Hermione learning Lupin's secret. The biggest piece of evidence was the Bogart turning into a moon, but she didn't mention that when she explained how she solved it off screen. She just said that Snape taught them about animagi, and he was missing classes. Lupin's name also translates to wolf, which is a big clue for the audience, but unusable for the characters. The Jigsaw puzzle plot facilitates these mysteries by slowly feeding viewers information. So Azkaban uses audience mysteries and mysteries that are solved for the heroes, but they're still interesting. The Jigsaw plot allows the story to play with how it executes mysteries, prolonging the period in which the audience doesn't know the answer. The first technique is reversing the natural order of scenes. If Snape's lesson on werewolves came before Lupin's fear of the moon was shown, then the audience would be able to conclude that Lupin's a werewolf as soon as the moon scene happened. Snape's lesson has a lot of time spent on it, which would crystallize it in our memories. So when Lupin's quick scene comes, we can piece the puzzle together immediately. But because the order is reversed, the audience is more likely to forget about Lupin implicitly fearing the moon for a few seconds by the time that Snape's lecture arrives. It's the same thing for the Black Dog in Act 1. If Snape taught about animagi before the Black Dog watched Harry, the viewers might have been able to guess that the dog was Sirius, who was after Harry, or at least an animagi. But because the dog appears long before the animagi exposition, we are likely to have either forgotten about it or not connected the dots. The other technique used for creating mysteries is logical inconsistencies. The examples are Pettigrew and the Time Turner. Pettigrew was said to have died at Black's hands, yet he was seen on the Marauders map in the castle. This doesn't make sense, but our faith in the writing ability of the story allows us to believe that there's an explanation that will clear everything up, thus making it a mystery. For the Time Turner, Hermione was explicitly said to have been taking two classes that happened at the same time. These could be brushed off as jokes, or they could be intentional inconsistencies to create a mystery again. They were the latter. The Jigsaw puzzle plot creates great setups that all pay off at the end. When combined with the plot structure, it also creates a plot that slowly builds up multiple mysteries at the same time. The way the mysteries were executed was unconventional, but clever, extending the lifespan of curiosity. All of these details make the film extremely rewarding to rewatch. It didn't need epic action, spectacle, or even a conventional plot. It used great payoffs, effective mysteries and plot twists, and a unique structure to make the most of these traits.